Okay, here we go. Pete, I'm coming to you live from Grant Cardone Enterprises here in Florida. There's a little shot of the man and his wife, Elena. That's probably a more familiar shot. Anytime you see Grant, he's usually got an airplane or something in the picture. An airplane or a helicopter or probably some atomic-powered submarine, something like that.
There's a good reason why that guy's always smiling, I could tell you that.
Yeah, there are probably a billion reasons
There
why
might be a billion reasons.
if you know what I mean.
I'm with you.
Folks, welcome to the Rebel's Edge. I am John Najarian. Pete Najarian is occupying the other seat. And Jared, we're not sure what he's doing.
Yeah,
Now we know. Jared is having bulls getting the better of a bear.
Yeah, and they're happening today. Woo!
Woo! Folks, you know the drill. We bring you a macro minute, fantastic futures, our take on at least 4 stocks, and we've got all that loaded up and ready to go. Let's dig in, Pete.
Let's do it.
All right, macro minute today. I'm going to say, Pete, that it is stocks a little higher, not huge. It's not a leap, but a little bit higher, and a lot of tech earnings, and then the Fed. That's the macro minute.
I'm going to be just as fast as you, John, because I'm going to say the same thing. Wednesday, we got the Fed. That's a big deal. And in between that, we've got Google, we've got Microsoft, we've got Meta, we've got Amazon after. So it's going to be a busy week. I mean, I think that earnings so far, pretty promising. And especially when you look at what the Dow has been doing. It's been on this great streak, and today adding a couple hundred points to it. So far, so good, John, as far as are we getting closer maybe to a soft landing? Maybe.
Maybe. It'll depend what Jerome Powell says, folks, on Wednesday, because we all know he's going to move 0.25%. He could shock us and move more than that, and the market would react. Or he could just do 0.25% and everybody'd be okay, but what's he going to say? I'm in the latter camp. All right, Pete, wheat. This is one of those inflationary items that just keeps going up. It's up 12% in a month. And, if you're talking about bread, for most of us, unless you've got gluten intolerances, you're probably somebody who's a big fan of wheat, whether you know it or not. And it's up 4% again today over at the CME, Pete, the former Board of Trade.
John, I'm going to jump on this energy trade because I've been all over it. You've been on it. And I think it's very, very important. We talked about, all the different cutbacks and 1 million barrels here and 1 million barrels there. Well, that kind of adds up after a while. Well, it's really starting to add up because today we were at 77 for oil, then 78. And the next thing you know, we're now over 79. So a pretty big run. I think energy in general right now, John, is going to be a very, very interesting place. I've thought that as we've gotten closer to the second half of the year. And as we've gotten into that, we hadn't seen a lot yet, but I think we're starting to see it here now that we've gotten a little deeper into July. Crude is on the run. Nat gas has made a nice bounce back. And keep an eye on coal and coal stocks, guys, because I'm telling you, it ain't dead. It ain't dead yet.
Nope, it isn't dead. I agree with you, Pete. Well, let's take a look at another stock that's not dead yet, Pete, AMC. Now, we all know that this one's famous for the apes being all the different folks that basically jumped on it during the pandemic lockdown and drove this to dizzying heights. Well, that's in the rearview mirror, but the stock was up almost 40% earlier today, Pete, holding on to about a 24-point gain. And the reason, percentage point that is, and the reason is, it's a combination of that judge saying you can't just merge ape into AMC because they're two separate traded entities. And also, it was a huge box office, Pete. Barbie and Oppenheimer, huge box office, and these guys made the most of it.
Box office was massive, John. And on top of that, when you get that type of those things going on there on a stock like this, that still does remain a very, very long short position within this thing. The short float, John's about 30%. And then you look at the outstanding, it's still at least something north of 10%. So when you've got a stock like that and it starts to move off of anything, whether it's, real news or not, I think this is real news because we know the box office and we know how big it was this weekend with Oppenheimer and Barbie just absolutely crushing it out there, and AMC being a huge winner because of that. That's why this stock is absolutely ripping to the upside. Still got high debt, still got a high cash burn. All those things still exist. But when you got this kind of shorts and you start to give a number like this, that's when things really start to sprint to the upside.
Exactly right. I would say this one is still going to be interesting for beyond just the weekend box office. All right, let's talk about PKX, Pete. I think it's the second time in a week that we've talked about it. It's a big Korean steel maker, and they came out with earnings. Shares were up as much as 24%. And they had the biggest move on record today. Also, their quarterly profits exploding to the upside, and some of that coming because some of the steel products they make, Pete, go right into electric vehicle batteries and the like. So this one's getting kind of the lift from everything but AI.
Yeah, no, it is. You're right, John. I mean, absolutely ripping to the upside. It's the EV materials that they've got. It's the steel itself is not so great, but they're really starting to kick a little butt in the EV space. And you add to that, John, hydrogen, which is another area they're starting to expand into as well. There's a lot going on within this company. It makes it very, very interesting. I like what we're seeing right now. They had their best earnings in over a year. It's the highest level this stock has been since 2008. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. This thing is on the run, and I think we all need to pay attention to it.
Absolutely. And it's been a heck of a ride for anybody who's been on it. And again, we've been talking about it, folks, since this thing was a lot cheaper. So another reason to watch the show. Let's talk, Pete, a little bit about Symbiotic, because this stock, SYM is the symbol. They already had a joint venture with SoftBank, but SoftBank throwing even more money into it now for AI-focused warehousing. Now, you might say, well, what does AI have to do with warehousing? Well, if you've got a robotic warehousing delivery, which is what Symbiotic SYM does, you can kind of figure out how maybe AI could help them make more money from everything from the stacking stuff to getting it in and out of the warehouse through those robotics, through the most efficient path. I think that is why people are buying it today, Pete.
I think you're right. I think that, the robotic technology is a very interesting one, John. And it's something that I'll give you a great example. You know what? McDonald's just opened a place that needs no employees. So there is a lot going on in this whole world. We talk about AI in a lot of different areas, and it does hit a lot of different areas. It's not just for technology. It's not just for whatever. It really does cover a lot of different areas within everything that we're looking at here. It's interesting, John, to see this stock and how it's kind of shaped itself today. I think it's going to be very interesting going forward. We've got to keep an eye on one thing on this stock, though. It's had a great run, right? It's had a really nice run from the year to date to where it is right now, but it's not had earnings. They have a real issue there. They still haven't been able to put it down and give us what we all want, which is, hey, give us some real earnings. They haven't done it yet, but I think they probably are on their way at some point in the next few quarters where maybe they can be a little bit more or something on the positive side.
Well, I'll try to play off that, Pete, for this next one, Kodiak Sciences. Now, you hear Kodiak and you either think of snuff, because I've certainly seen chewing tobacco and snuff under that brand, or you think of some big, huge bear. Well, there is a big, huge bear just clawing all over this and the shareholders, because they're going to discontinue development of an experimental drug for a type of eye disorder. And the stock lost half of its value on that statement, Pete. That statement alone. Hey, we're going to stop development of this eye drug. And as it turns out, Pete, the eye drug not only didn't do what it was supposed to do, but did a bunch of other bad things.
Yeah, terrible things. It was absolutely awful. They yanked it immediately, but I mean, holy smokes, John. So they were deep into these trials, right? We talk about this all the time. And how important it is that you're not there until you're there. I mean, you can go through phase 1 and 2, great, everything looks fantastic, and then all of a sudden you stumble. And that is generally what normally happens. It's exactly what's going on here. They got a little bit deeper into it, then all of a sudden these problems popped up as you're talking about, It was in two late stages. It was just brutal that we're looking at what we're seeing. And that's why it makes sense why they were getting actually hammered, John. I mean, I look at this stock and I'm thinking, that's not great. Unfortunately, they got a burn rate that's going on. They got a lot of different things that they've got to deal with. I'm not very much in the bull camp on this one. On a bullish day, this name is absolutely getting torched.
Well, Pete, it turns out that the drug they were testing, not only did it not work for what it was supposed to do, like I said, but also it led to an increase in cataracts, which is not exactly something that somebody that already has eye problems needs to deal with.
Yeah, let's just roll the dice and get some cataract issues here as well. They did pull it, so that part's good. You want to jump to sports?
That's the best news of the day for all of us, I think. All right. What about sports, Pete? I'm going to let you take it, and I'm going to follow your lead.
All right. Well, we're going to start with this one, John, the MLB, which is Major League Baseball. And how about is there anybody probably bigger ever in the history of baseball in terms of being on the block potentially? I mean, normally you get a great player, you get a legendary player, they're off. They're not part of the whole trade deadline. Well, Ohtani still is. He's not a lock to stay with the Angels. There's a good chance that somebody might give them a lot for him, John. All he's done is hit his 36th home run just yesterday, over 400 feet. The ball was out of the park before you could blink. I mean, he didn't even get the thing. It wasn't 20 feet off the ground. It just literally was a rocket. They measured it at 113-mile-an-hour bat speed when he hit that ball. So a lot going on there. This guy's going to be absolutely unbelievable. Hopefully, John, I think the Angels with this Armenian general manager, I'd like to see him pull his head out and make sure he keeps on to this guy, because this guy is absolutely magical, what he's been able to do. And his pitching, not enough is said about his pitching because we get so enthralled with what he's done with home runs. But it is the trade deadline. We're talking about August 1st, and we will see some massive trades. It might not be Ohtani going somewhere, but keep an eye on baseball, because this is where it gets exciting. This is where everybody lines up and says, we just need this one player, and we think we can go to the World Series. And everybody's doing it, including the Yankees, because they got a lot of problems, a lot of injuries. They got a lot of pitchers out. They got Judge out. They've got some issues. And right now, John, they have no shot at getting the playoffs based on where they are right now in the AL East. So that's going to be rough. By the way, your buddy De La Cruz just hit an absolute ungodly leadoff homer the other day too, yesterday. So good call by you to point him out the other day. Cincinnati Reds, what a fun team to watch this year, because that's not normally a team that everybody is saying, hey, let's go see the Reds, But this guy's worth the money.
Oh, yeah. Well, Pete, like I said, Jack Wyatt is a friend of the show, a great guy. And I sure hope that they hold on and build with players like him. But the Ohtani thing, Pete, I mean, he's a prohibitive favorite to win the MVP award. And I think we all understand why, all the reasons Pete outlined. I don't know that the Angels can really afford to lose this guy, Pete. I mean, if you lose him and then you've got Trout, who you have to decide what you're going to do with him, do you even have anybody willing to go to the ballpark anymore? No. I mean, this would be a huge loss. As much as it's going to be a huge payday for him, he wants to go someplace that wants to win the World Series. Everybody wants to, just like everybody wants to be rich, but not everybody will work hard enough to get there. And this is a guy that can get you there. So I'm just stunned that there's even trade discussion around this guy.
John, the guy's got 7 triples. He's got an ERA of 3.71, and he's got 148 strikeouts as a pitcher who throws 100 miles an hour, by the way. But other than that, he's not that good. So next we're going to hit arena football. Arena football's back, baby. Let me tell you, John, they're coming back with 16 teams. Now, it was around longer than a lot of people realize. I think I read that they had 32 seasons of AFL. So it's something they want to bring back. I don't know if they can actually, my worry is this. I like it. The commissioner is a friend of mine. He played football at the University of Minnesota after me, Lee Hutton. He's the first African-American to ever be the commissioner of major sport. So really cool. Great guy. He's got a legal background. But I just wonder, John. Yesterday we were talking about this on the show that I do on Sundays on the sports show, and we were talking about, well, what should some of these names be? You kind of have to have a little bit of fun. So I was looking at, like, Minnesota's going to have a team. We've had one before. We're going to have another one. I figure the Blizzard makes a lot of sense. I mean, we are the land of blizzards, and I think you could actually parlay that into a whole thing where, all right, you're the Minnesota Blizzard, and you've got all these blizzards that you get a discount on if there's a certain score or whatever you want to do. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could come up with, that kind of thing, right? There's a team in Chicago. You guys always end up with an arena ball team. I don't know what the best one would be. I mean, obviously you like to play off of something about the Windy City, or maybe you say it's Goat Town or something like that. I don't know, but you could have a lot of fun with some of these names. It's really cool that they want to do it. My question, I guess, to you, John, is why can't it work, and why hasn't it worked? Is there any ideas you want to throw out? Because I don't know. People just do not support it enough to really make it something viable. They had to file bankruptcy a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think they've had to do it twice, Pete. File for bankruptcy, that is. So, I find it a very confusing kind of sport. I mean, it really is just a jump ball for the end zone most of the time, because, it's only 66-yard field. It's, 30 yards wide or something like that. This thing's been around for 36 years, Pete. But I think that's part of the problem, is that it is not traditional football at all, really. And the guys end up going both ways. I've enjoyed when I've watched it, and maybe with a different partner. They've got Fox Sports as their TV partner this time. It's all about, getting eyeballs and having live sports that are exciting. I've seen, and I know you have too, Pete, I don't mean this to be funny, but I've seen lingerie football leagues draw better than these guys. And that's why they've had to file a couple times. Hopefully your guy, Lee Hutton, can get this, over the goal line, to use that terminology, Pete. But they have just a modicum of support. They need a bit more. I'm not sure the best way for them to get it. I would assume that it's probably a combination of Fox Sports and social. They need that social out there to really sort of push, to get a few extra bodies in the stadium, not just people watching on Fox.
Yeah, they've got to figure that part out, John. It starts in 2024. Mike Hohensy's a good friend of mine. I'll shout out to him. He was a quarterback when I was a freshman in college, University of Minnesota. He played arena ball. He's coached it for many, many years. He's been around it. And I think they can figure out something, John. I just don't know exactly what rules they maybe need to change or how they need to do something, but they do need to restructure it if they want to have success, long-lasting success. So that'll be something interesting to watch, but we'll follow that up another time or whatever. I think arena ball is, it can be exciting and it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it can. And folks, Pete and I will be back tomorrow, speaking of a lot of fun, at 1:00 Eastern time. So make sure you tune in for that. Again, another quick shout out to our friends at the NASDAQ, which were nice enough to host us for 2 days last week. We'll be doing more of that at the NASDAQ with their great support. And we really appreciate all of you. So make sure you tell your friend about the show, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern time.